Welcome back to the channel. Today we're looking at the man steering Malaysia through one of its most complex economic and political moments, Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim. You've probably heard his name in headlines about diplomacy, reforms, or even old political rivalries. But behind the politics, there's a story of numbers, negotiations, and decisions that are quietly reshaping Malaysia's future. And at the heart of it all is one thing: a slow but steady fiscal turnaround. From political survivor to prime minister, Anwar's political journey is the stuff of political dramas. Once Malaysia's rising star, then a prisoner, then a relentless opposition leader, and finally, after decades of twists, the nation's 10th prime minister in November 2022. His arrival at Putrajaya came during a fragile time. Inflationary pressures were biting, debt levels were high, and Malaysia's economy was still recovering from the pandemic shock. Many were expecting grand promises. Instead, Anwar started with balance sheets. Cutting the deficit, the quiet revolution. Let's talk numbers. Because while flashy mega projects grab headlines, fiscal health determines a nation's long-term stability. Here's the trend. In 2021, the fiscal deficit was at 6.4% of GDP. In 2022, it fell to 5.5%. In 2023, it went down further to 5.0%. In 2024, it's around 4.1%. And for 2025, the target is 3.8%. That's not just a tidy set of statistics. It's a deliberate strategy to rebuild confidence, both among international investors and ordinary Malaysians. Why it matters. The fiscal deficit is essentially the gap between what the government spends and what it earns. A smaller gap means less borrowing, less interest to pay in the future, and more room to spend on development rather than debt service. Under Anwar, the government cut new borrowings from Rm 99 billion in 2022 to Rm 76.8 billion in 2024. That's a 22 billion ringgit drop in just 2 years. Critics might point out that total national debt is still high, hovering around 64% of GDP. But here's the nuance. Anwar isn't promising an overnight debt wipeout. He's slowing the pace of debt growth so that the economy can grow faster than the debt itself. That's how you bring ratios down sustainably. The tools he's using. How do you shave off a fiscal deficit without triggering a recession or mass unrest? Anwar's approach has been a balancing act of targeted subsidy reforms, widening the tax net, and tight spending controls. Subsidy rationalization has been one of the most politically sensitive moves. Blanket fuel subsidies are being restructured so that aid goes to those who actually need it. It's unpopular in the short term, but economists call it a fiscal game changer. Malaysia has also widened its tax base, going after digital economy revenues and plugging leakages. Even without reintroducing GST, more sectors are now captured in the system. And crucially, borrowing is increasingly channeled toward infrastructure, green energy, and technology projects, investments that generate returns, not just expenses. Why investors are paying attention. Malaysia's credibility in the bond markets depends heavily on fiscal discipline. The gradual deficit decline has improved sentiment, making it cheaper for the government to borrow when necessary. The Public Finance and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2023 legally binds future governments to keep debt within a sustainable range. It's not just a political pledge, it's law. Diplomacy with dividends. While the fiscal reforms have been quiet work, Anwar's diplomacy has been more visible. In July 2025, he helped broker a ceasefire between Thailand and Cambodia after border clashes, a rare and impressive ASEAN mediation success. Malaysia also offered to mediate in southern Thailand's long-running insurgency. He also launched the Johor-Singapore Special Economic Zone, set to attract investment, boost trade, and create 20,000 skilled jobs. Infrastructure and energy. Push. Fiscal discipline doesn't mean stopping investments. Anwar announced a RM43 billion upgrade to the national electricity grid, aimed at supporting AI data centers and battery storage. Petronas is expanding into carbon capture and storage, keeping Malaysia competitive in a decarbonizing world. Social support without fiscal chaos. Cutting the deficit isn't about austerity. In fact, Anwar rolled out the basic Rahmah contribution, a one-off RM100 payment to help with living costs, while expanding scholarships, especially in Sarawak. Over 680,000 Sarawakians have benefited from education and training programs funded by Petronas, with thousands placed in jobs. A legal and sovereignty win. In the Sulu arbitration case, Malaysia faced a claim for USD 15 billion. Under Anwar's watch, a French court annulled the award, a legal victory saving the country from a crippling payout. Why this all feeds back into the deficit story. Peace in the region encourages trade. Infrastructure attracts investment. Legal wins protect resources. And targeted social programs prevent unrest. All these factors help grow GDP. And when GDP rises faster than debt, the debt to GDP ratio falls naturally. That's why the fiscal deficit work isn't an isolated economic exercise. It's connected to everything else. The Malaysia Madani Framework. Anwar's reforms are guided by Malaysia Madani, a national framework rooted in sustainability, prosperity, innovation, respect, trust, and compassion. It's part political philosophy, part governance checklist. Fiscal responsibility is one of its cornerstones. Challenges ahead. Reaching the 3.8% deficit target in 2025 will not be easy. Global oil prices, China's economic slowdown, and domestic political pressures could derail the plan. But Malaysia is now on a path where fiscal stability is not just an IMF talking point, it's becoming part of the political conversation. Dato Seri Anwar Ibrahim is not the first Malaysian leader to talk about reducing deficits, but he may be one of the few actually making measurable progress year after year. Whether history sees him as a fiscal reformer or just a caretaker of good fortune will depend on whether this momentum survives beyond 2025. For now, the numbers tell a story. From 6.4% to 4.1%, heading towards 3.8%. It's not flashy, it's not viral. But in the world of national finances, that's the kind of slow burn that can secure a country's future. If you found this breakdown useful, remember, headlines will tell you the politics, but the numbers tell you the truth.